Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that we resume our procedures, please.
Thanks, Councillor Peltz. Thanks, Councillor Ellis. All those in favour? Motion's carried. Okay. Thanks for the questions and comments from the officers. We have a recommendation before us.
Councillor Peltz.
Councillor Peltz, happy to move it?
All right, I'll second it.
Thanks, Councillor Ellis. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor?
Yes, I'd just like to say this has been through, good processes with council with regards to the PCM process, the negotiation process with both all our staff and councillor representation to get this to this stage. This is what has been agreed to by all parties. So we're going with what the recommendations are of the officers. As what was explained earlier after Councillor Ellis's question, that both parties, should they wish to show some dissatisfaction, they have the right to go to VCAT and appeal various positions with regards to their application. So with that put, I'm happy to recommend this, the officers' recommendations as stands. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Peltz. Councillor Ellis.
Just a few words, Madam Mayor, to say that this application has been handled at a professional level, with exchanges between the planning officers for both the applicant and the council, that it has been subject to a lengthy and fair public consultation meeting over to the issue, and that councillors, in receiving the briefings from council officers, have given this considerable thought and debate. The recommendation is fair and reasonable in the circumstances. It is open to review at a later time if things can be reviewed. It doesn't restrict or discourage private enterprise in any sense. And as a councillor, I wish the applicant the very best, and therefore I recommend that his application, and that's what it is, be supported by council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Ellis. Any further speakers? Councillor Rotino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was speaking in favour of the motion that's been put on the floor now. I believe this will give this the best opportunity to get through, and I hereby support the motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Rotino. If there are no further speakers, I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Motion is carried 8-0. Thank you. Application 289/2018P, application for a two-lot subdivision to excise an existing dwelling at 1090 Deptford Road, Clifton Creek. And we have Courtney Campbell, who wishes to speak to the item. Thanks, Ms Campbell. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors, staff. I'm a bit thrown by the last one. I haven't got my head around that yet. Unfortunately, this application has taken a long time. Speaking against the planning permit application for a two-lot subdivision at 1090 Deptford Road, Clifton Creek, for a two-lot subdivision. Unfortunately, the processing of this application has taken an extremely long time. There's been very little action on this application since October of last year, and the application was lodged on the 7th of September. All referral responses received by the 11th of October. A detailed assessment was undertaken in February, and now here we are, 6 months later. I understand that this type of subdivision is not favoured by some of our council officers at the moment. There is, however, the ability to allow this type of subdivision and no substantial policy or provision to prevent it. There is a need to consider each of these types of subdivisions on their merit and to assess the site and the farming ability on a case-by-case basis. The land's undulating in nature and has large patches of vegetation that limit the areas that can be used for grazing. The proposed subdivision creates a 19.5 hectare allotment with the existing house that will continue to be used for grazing. This lot will have access to suitable rural infrastructure, including water, stockyards, and is divided into grazing paddocks. The balance allotment will have rights for a house to be built on it, as it is greater than the 40 hectares, and whilst it is claimed that the land will be lost to farming, in this instance the potential development of an additional house may lose a couple of hundred square metres. However, the significant investment in infrastructure and intensive use of agriculture could be gained. Not many farming enterprises within East Gippsland are the sole income for families anymore, particularly now during this severe drought. Most people have a secondary income, so the need to retain the larger land holdings is no longer critical. Overall, the aim is to maintain and improve rural production, which in some farming areas is easier, and larger land holdings do support that. However, this is not the case here. Clearing the land of vegetation will ultimately improve the rural production. However, I don't think this is a desirable outcome. I agree with the objective in seeking to protect and enhance our viable and high-quality agricultural land. Our Snowy and Mitchell River flats, the large thousands of hectare land holdings at the back of Buchan, the areas that are remote and play a direct role in the agricultural industry of East Gippsland. This land is not prime or high-quality agricultural land. The planner's report states that lots in this area range between 2 hectares and 100 hectares, and lots containing dwellings generally do not have an agricultural component. We are providing the ability to have both a dwelling and an agricultural use on each of these 2 lots. In relation to the bushfire management overlay, the CFA have as much responsibility as the council, and they have provided consent to this proposal. All in all, this subdivision will not permanently remove land from the overall input into the agricultural economy of East Gippsland. The subdivision is not out of character for other lot layouts and land holdings in the area. We respectfully request an alternative motion be put forward to grant a permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Campbell. Ms Reynolds, do you wish to speak to the item?
Thank you, Ms Campbell. This is a planning application that is seeking to use a provision of the farming zone. It's a farming zone property of which there are 3 opportunities to make an application for subdivision. This is an application that is applying to use the clause that talks about an excision of a dwelling. In this instance, it's creating a 2-lot subdivision, the dwelling to contain the existing dwelling, major dam and farm infrastructure with a 19 hectare allotment and an approximate 57 balance allotment. Essentially, the recommendation before you, councillors, is that we as planners have taken the arguments with respect to the premise of the application. In this case, there is no compelling reasons and benefits presented as part of the application to the ongoing farming of the property. There is no farming reason for the 2-lot subdivision. Furthermore, what we are saying is that the subdivision results in the fragmentation of land, and by doing so, it's creating another dwelling in the rural landscape. The purpose of the farming zone is quite specific, that it aims to support and enhance the farming of the land. What we're saying is the fragmentation will lead to does not support necessarily another agricultural pursuit of the land. We are saying that it's a rural residential outcome. The council report talks about what the definition of rural residential outcome, and it's about a lifestyle opportunity. The creation of a balance allotment greater than 40 hectares creates an allotment greater than the schedule. The schedule to the farming zone in this case grants a right to use the balanced land for the purposes of a dwelling. Use is granted by the nature of the number of the balanced lot. In this case, a planning permit would be triggered to consider the BMO issues, but the use is as of right in town planning terms. Essentially, it's a 78 hectare property that we consider has grazing opportunity. There is no basis for the proposal that any intensive agriculture is to commence, or any reason why a smaller lot is considered to be of merit. I take you to the decision guidelines in the planning scheme, and essentially, it's very important that I say tonight that just because a permit can be granted, or that we can apply for a permit, it does not apply that we should grant a permit. In this case, we are saying that local policy relating to agriculture in our local planning scheme actively discourage the creation of rural residential lots. For this reason, we are proposing 6 grounds of refusal, and we believe premised on it being inconsistent with the purpose of the zone and inconsistent with our local planning policy relating to agriculture.
Thanks, Ms Reynolds. Questions, councillors? Councillor Buckley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does an alternative recommendation exist in this case? Have we prepared one? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. No, an alternative recommendation has not been prepared.
Why so? Or why was it mentioned by Courtney Campbell?
Mr Hollow?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As part of discussions with councillors, where we advise councillors of the applications coming forward to council and provide them with a review of the matters at hand, council did not suggest or request for an alternative motion on this matter be prepared.
Thank you.
Councillor Toohey?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. An excision, from what I have seen and known of over the years, that is a generally accepted process. But from what I've seen over the years, an excision usually involves a very small parcel of land. Is that what the ability to excise a property off? Is that what that's about?
Thank you, Councillor Toohey, for your question. Excisions historically have often meant a smaller lot. Smaller lot in the definition is less than 40 hectares, but in our practice, less than 40 is the answer. In the past, lots are usually in the order of that 2 hectares, a smaller lot as opposed to the 90. When I say usual, they're usually smaller than the 19, notwithstanding that there will have been situations perhaps that we have approved.
No further questions? We have a recommendation before us, councillors. Do I have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Toohey. Seconder? Do we have a seconder?
I'd like to move an alternative.
I need a What's your alternative motion?
I'd like
Councillor
to,
Roberts?
do we need to let Councillor Toohey's motion lapse? I would like to move that the application be approved, that be granted.
I'll second that if you need a second.
Okay, can I just please refer this to Ms Bennett for clarification? Or Mr Hollow?
Madam Mayor, if a motion was put to grant a planning permit in this case, the motion should be supported with a range of conditions so that procedural and technical requirements of the Subdivisional Act and the Planning Environment Act can be met, as well as obviously practical and sensible matters. We have none tonight pre-prepared, so we would be required to maybe be provided with some time to prepare up a suitable motion.
Councillor Roberts?
Could I request that we defer it until the next ordinary council meeting?
Mr. Hollow, can you please clarify whether that's possible?
Yes, that's possible, Madam Mayor.
Just on procedural processes, the councillor too was in the moved the motion, and I was in the process of seconding it when an amendment I took it jumped in. Where does that leave the application as we are now? Because I would have thought it was left on the table.
Ms. Bennett, are you able to?
Through you, Madam Mayor, can I just clarify, did you actually second, councillor, or were you?
Well, no, what happened, well, no, I didn't get to be recorded. That was the point. I was in that, I had the hand up but unfortunately, fortunately from Councillor Roberts' point of view, he jumped in quick enough, but I wasn't recognised. If it's the case that Councillor Toohey doesn't have a second, I take it that the motion must lapse. But I'm just wondering, is this the appropriate process?
If I may, could I confirm through you, Madam Mayor, with Councillor Toohey, whether he wishes his motion to go ahead or whether he was planning to withdraw it?
No, I'm happy to withdraw it, given the reaction in the chamber.
No, it's not lost. It's just withdrawn.
Withdrawn. So Councillor Roberts has moved to defer the item. Councillor Peltz has seconded. I'll put it to the vote to the next council meeting, which is Tuesday. Councillor Peltz has seconded it. Councillor Roberts, can you please speak to your motion as to why you have asked for it to be deferred?
Sure. Considering the large excision remain and the excise land would remain at 40 hectares, I don't believe it would be detrimental to planning outcomes. Considering the quality of the land that's being subject to the application, I think it's fair to the applicant that it be considered for the reasons that I just mentioned. Thank you.
Ms. Bennett.
Thank you again, Councillor Roberts. I think it would be useful for the sake of let the record reflect and for clarity, if you were prepared to include in your motion that the matter be deferred so that officers have an opportunity to Thank you.
I would like to also clarify that the reasoning that I would like to request to move that this item be deferred till the next available ordinary council meeting is to give officers time to formulate an appropriate recommendation that meets all statutory and administrative requirements. I request a recommendation for approval to be considered at the next ordinary council meeting. We got there, thank you.
Mr. Hollow, do you wish to?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the officer recommendation remains as put. I think what we're looking at is a request to prepare an alternative motion to support the application.
Councillor Roberts, is that what you are asking for?
That is correct. Thank you, Mr. Hollow, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I too would like to speak in support of Councillor Roberts's quest on the grounds that 192 78 hectares actually is equivalent to 192 acres, and the 40 hectares is equivalent to 98 acres, and it gives me thought that it's actually an appropriate subdivision. Whilst it may be, some of it may be covered in dense forest or treed, the bottom line is it is still a viable grazing property, and I think the applicant actually has merit and there is a right for him to be able to subdivide his property and still be able to have a 40 hectare property which is 98 acres, and I believe it's above and beyond the request of the state government's or the state government's guidelines of being 40 acres. So I think there's actually merit, and I would like the officers to have a look at what they are recommending and the alternative to be considerate of the applicant's wishes on being able to possibly develop his property to how he requests. Thank you.
Councillor Rotino.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to quickly support Councillor Roberts, and my support is in the absence of our rural land use strategy. I just couldn't support the recommendation that was presented here tonight, but I'm supporting the motion to defer. You know, there's precedents that we have approved this type of subdivision before, and not that that sways me, but in the absence of our rural land use strategy, I can't support the previous one, and I am supporting Councillor Roberts' motion. Thank you.
Councillor Ellis.
Someone has to oppose the application, so it's me. I think, as usual, as I'm reminded, the situation is, councillors, we were presented with these briefing papers previously. We have gone through and read through these issues. We have discussed them and challenged officers in relation to their recommendation. The officers, in good faith and complying with their role, have presented these documents for us to make a decision on this evening. We should have been able to make a decision on this matter tonight. The planning rules are clear in relation to this. Government direction from the state planning officers is very clear in relation to these matters. These exercises are not unusual. We do get these on a fairly regular basis, and we make particular decisions. And I believe that we should, as a council, have been in a position to make a decision on this evening, and therefore I must oppose this application for deferral. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any further speakers? Councillor Roberts, do you wish to have a right of reply?
No, I'll pass. Thank you.
I'll put Councillor Roberts' motion for deferment to all. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried 5-3. .1.3 East Gippsland Shire Council proposed seats priority projects. Ms Weigel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Roads and connectivity are paramount and very important to the East Gippsland Shire community, and very important therefore to Council, both as a provider of nearly 3,000 kilometres of roads ourselves, and also as an advocate on behalf of our community for road improvements and provision of roads where the responsibility lies with other agencies. Wearing our advocacy hat, we have been a member of the South East Australian Transport Strategy Group, otherwise known as SEATS, for a number of years, and indeed Councillor Pels currently chairs that group. That group develops a register of priority projects along the eastern seaboard of Australia, and is a strong advocacy group for those priority projects. Over the years, we've had a number of projects that have been on that priority list and have since been implemented or upgraded, and there has been an outcome. SEATS is in the process of reviewing their strategy and their list of priority projects, and we've been asked to nominate projects for that group again. We have put forward 12 projects for Council to consider tonight. They have been based on 3 selection criteria around road safety, economic benefit and connectivity. We've also further prioritised them, so we've identified some of those projects that are ready for investment or shovel ready, and others that we consider are ready for further planning work. So the recommendation, and these are provided to you as Appendix 1. The recommendation before Council tonight is that Council endorses these proposed priority projects so that we can provide them to seeds. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms Weigel. Questions, councillors?
Happy to put forward the motion laying before Council, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Ellis. Thanks, Councillor Toohey. Do you wish to speak to the recommendation, Councillor Ellis?
Simply, I put the matter to councillors to support and refer you to the list that has been provided for us. They are all been on the table with council for quite some time. Parochially, I'm glad to see that one of my babies, the Scrivener's Track, Lakes Entrance, is mentioned. I should say that while I'm here. And a number of other important recommendations. The seats is a particularly important organisation, and I'll allow Councillor Toohey to refer to that organisation in his words, but I fully commend this motion before you too, Council. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Toohey?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Having recently attended seats up in New South Wales in Councillor Pels's place, I was made very aware of the importance that that seats plays in the in advocating for road improvements from Canberra down across the eastern corner of our country across to Western Victoria, and this list here I think does truly represent some of the priorities that we see here, and that will be pursued by that organisation and put in front of ministers who are making decisions on the works that need to be done in preferably our area, but all areas of the state. So it's this is a good list with some very opportune and very important upgrades. So I'm happy to support this proposal. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Toohey. Councillor Buckley?
Just a quick question. Does Calhoun Road come under the seats program? The one that goes up from here out to the Bruthen Road? Yeah.
It's in our region, so yes.
And it's a big road, is it? No, it's a Delp. Delp Road.
Yeah.
Well, that all comes under the same umbrella, doesn't it?
It's in our region.
Yeah. Well, when we say seats, we mean Delp roads as well, don't we?
Yep.
Yeah.
Councillor Peltz, do you wish to speak to the motion, and perhaps you can clarify?
If I might enlighten you, if I may, Councillor Buckley. The seats is the South Eastern Transport Systems, and basically it's all roads and ports and airports within the East Gippsland region, and within all of the 16 other council member regions as well. So it goes from Wollongong all the way down to Baw, and it covers all roads and rail and airports, everything. So if it's a Delp road and it's in the Calhoun, it will come under our seats delegation, and it will be a local road, but it will also be something that, if it's on a priority projects list such as this, it will be recognised. It's the only way it will probably be recognised, because it is very well respected, the seats group within the political circles. Both federal and state government look towards us for funding opportunities to help their regions. So with that said, I'd like to say to Fiona, thank you, and Mark, who's been helping. Thank you for developing this list, because for a long time I've been involved with seats for the past 11 years, and I look at the lists from New South Wales and they get hundreds of thousands of dollars for road upgrades in their regions, purely because they get them on these seats lists. And we've been a bit reserved over the years, and the Victorian sector's always light on. And whilst we've actually you know, we're getting to the pointier end of our old list. It's great to be seeing new projects identified that would improve travel and, you know, holiday tourism destinations, you know, for people to be travelling within our regions. And I think it's really important that we can help these safety upgrades and improvements, because our area is predominantly hilly, and with a caravan on, it's quite difficult for some of the elderly to be driving around our region. So any upgrades we can campaign for, I think it's a real bonus for our area. So with that said, I commend that more councillors support this list so we can get it recognised with some decent funding for our region.
Thank you, Councillor Pell.
Any further speakers? No? With that said, I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Motion's carried 8-0. (5.2.1) Regional and District Event Sponsorship Round 2 2018-2019 Assessment. I wish to declare a conflict of interest, and as such will ask Councillor White to chair this portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to welcome Mr John Morton to the table, and if he would go through their proposals and those who have been successful, and discuss who's going to get given some of these funds. Thank you, Mr Morton.
Thanks very much. Good evening, councillors. Councillors, as you know, we've been running the roads program for a number of years, since 2009. Over that time, it's been a very successful program, particularly through the roads side of things, which specifically relates to regional and district events. During that time, council supported an extremely large number of events during that time. During the current year, so the 2018-19 financial year, we've supported events totalling around $91,000. These events have been spread throughout the region, and also we've been able to bring an additional 12 new events during that period to the region. Many of those have been over a 3-year period as well, which is great that we're seeing that economic benefit coming to the region. This year, or for the second round of roads for 2018-19, we received 7 applications for funding, and a number of these do stretch out for the out years, up to 2021-22. Offering a good spread of events throughout the region again, which is great, and we've also had a number of applications from as far widespread as Anglers Rest, which is great. So there's a number of those, Friends of Midder, the Bensdale Kart Club, East Gippsland Food and Fibre Gippsland, which is formerly the East Gippsland Food Cluster, Vic Bring Classic, the Painesville Classic Boat Rally, and the Alpine Links Regional Community Development Association. So those in total are 37,500, and hopefully they will continue to encourage regional growth throughout the Shire. Councillors, there's a recommendation before you this evening for your consideration in relation to the round 2 of the 18-19 roads. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr Morton. Councillors, would you have any questions? Councillor Ellis?
Mr Morton, this is I know we're a bit odd. It's just a quick question. The Gippsland Polo Classic, which is to be held at Kabungra Station, I note, was traditionally sponsored and managed over in Alpine Shire. Can you tell us how we were able to entice them to come over into the East Gippsland Shire? I thought it was a permanent matter on their calendar.
Thanks, Councillor Ellis, for your question. So yeah, we've been in discussions with the Alps Link community up there, and the people who have been organising the event, and also the Alpine Shire. The Alpine Shire have had a bit of a change in what they're looking at to support, and I think they see it as, because Kabungra falls in our region, that it fits with us a little bit more, and we were very forthright in obtaining that event. So it's another one that we've been able to get, and it's been a very successful event over the last 30 years, I think it's been running. So yeah, it's a bit of a coup, for want of a better word, for us to obtain that. So that's why.
Yeah, would you like me to make a little comment on that? Oh, okay.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Now, the location where they had it up at the paddock, you know, where the it's the Mount Hotham Airport's the official name for it. They used to hold it there, and because of the development there of the runway, the area became restricted, and it wasn't such a popular spot, whereas Kabunga was quite the opposite, and the proprietors at Kabunga Station were very helpful in wanting it to go there, and it's been there for a fair little while now. And Horsehair Plain was the name of the original spot where it was. Well, that's not quite big enough to be called a plain now, except for aeroplanes. So, and there's not many of them either go there these days. So thank you very much, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for the history lesson, Councillor Buckley, and now we have an impatient Councillor Roberts wishing to ask a question.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you, Mr Morton. I noted of the 7 requests for funding, request number 7, the East Gippsland Beef Conference, was the only one that was not in the recommendation, despite the description, the comments and description noting that it's been quite successful in previous years. Is there a reason why that was omitted this time around?
It was, and thanks for your question, Councillor Roberts. So the East Gippsland Beef Conference in the past has been run through a committee, and this year the application actually came to Council through the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions, and it was felt when we were discussing it that if Council was to fund that through this program back to a state department, that there would be some concerns around that. However, in saying that, we have had subsequent discussions with that group, and we will be supporting the event through other means going forward.
Councillor Rotino.
I'm happy to move it, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, that's moved by Councillor Rotino, seconded by Councillor Buckley. Would you like to speak to this?
I'd just like to thank the officers for preparing the report. This is an excellent way for get seed funding out to particularly new events or emerging events, and as you rightly put, Mr Morton, it does give then those events leeway to either springboard off what they've done or source other types of funding. So it's a really important piece of work that we do each year, and thank you and commend you for the work done here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rotino. Councillor Buckley, would you like to respond?
I think I've covered it fairly well, thank you. Thank you.
Any speakers against?
Me?
I think we would.
Yes. Thanks for that. Okay. No speakers against. I'll put this motion to the vote, please. All those in favour?
7-0.
Unanimous. Thank you, councillors, and I would expect that our Mayor may return to the chamber.
Five 5.3.1 Amendment to Council Meeting Schedule 2019. Miss Bennett. Oh, Mr CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a procedural matter. Essentially, we are seeking to swap around the meeting schedule from in August and September, simply swapping the dates over so that we can have the August meeting in Omeo, due to the fact that we have external people, in particular the auditors, coming to the meeting in September, which would have made it problematic. So there's a recommendation there for Council to consider, and I would put that to you.
To move the motion, Madam Mayor, it's procedural.
Thanks, Councillor Ellis. Thanks, Councillor Rotino. No speakers? No. Put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 5.3.2, Instrument of Delegation, Council to Chief Executive Officer, Procurement of Insurance. Ms Bennett.
Thank you. Councillors, this report is seeking your approval to amend the CEO's delegation to exclude the purchase of specified insurances from his delegation, which limits the amount of money or the amount of goods, works and services that can be acquired to $250,000. It's basically an operational issue in that because of a range of factors, including the process that needs to be followed and the timing of the tender that is undertaken on behalf of ourselves and a number of other councils, means that we are seeking, we are looking to raise the purchase order to purchase these insurances: public liability, products liability, professional indemnity and special industrial risks, at a period that's normally at the end of June or early in July. If we are given the report on these tenders a little late, it means that potentially we might go for the whole month of July without having live insurance in place. Through this amendment to the delegation, which is quite specific in that it is only insurance that is exempted from the delegation, we will overcome that problem and ensure that we have appropriate insurances in place 12 months of the year. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms Bennett. Are there any questions, councillors?
Happy to move it, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Peltz.
Yep, just to clarify so that we know exactly what we're adopting here, I'm trying to work out the insurances that you've said. Are they listed in table on the page 49 in that table where there was 393,593, or is that the amount in total? Can you just clarify that, please?
That's the total.
Total of all of the 4 insurances together.
Correct. They are all paid at the same time, and that's why the amount is so high.
So if they were all individually listed at their own amount, it'd actually come to his delegation amount?
Potentially, yes, but that's not the way the package is presented to us. It actually comes as a package.
So the amount that we're actually talking about it's probably slightly higher than $393,593.
Yes, it would be, and it would increase annually in accordance with
CPI or something, whatever
and market factors as well.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we're looking around the $400,000 figure plus GST.
Yes, potentially you would be looking around that figure this year. But if, for example, a cap was set on the excess, we'd be back next year seeking a further increase.
Can I just state, I think I recall the same issue happening last year, and we had to do it. We had to do the same process. So moving forward with this, is there a way besides increasing the Chief Executive Officer's delegation of looking at this in some other, way so that we don't have to go through this process again next year, because we will be?
The purpose of this report is actually to position us so that we don't have to do this again. What we normally have to do is scramble a report to you quite inelegantly sometimes, because the notice is so short, to get your specific approval to enable us to acquire the insurance. By increasing the CEO's delegation, what we're hoping to do is that not having to scramble back to a council meeting or call a special council meeting specifically for the purchase of procuring these insurances.
So to make it clear to all of the councillors around the table, what we're adopting tonight, if we accept this recommendation, is inter perpetuity. We are stating that the CEO of our business is able to not have to come back to us to be able to get the permission to adopt our insurances, given the fact that they will be at a base rate now of $493,593 for the 1920 year, or thereabouts. So the $400,000 figure thereabouts plus GST, which is $440,000.
Yeah, essentially what you're doing, councillors, is saying that regardless of the cost of these insurances, and it is these specific insurances, the CEO can purchase or acquire those without requiring a resolution of council. I think it's worth noting, council, and it's a point that's often overlooked, that these figures, or the ambit figures, are included in the budget. So by approving the annual budget, you are effectively authorising the expenditure, not the CEO's expenditure, but the expenditure on these insurances. So what we're looking for here is an administrative tool through which, when we are advised the amount of money that we're required to pay, we can do that without having to wait for the next council meeting or call a special meeting of the council. It is possible, if it would make councillors more comfortable, you could make it provisional on a report coming to the next council meeting indicating that the insurance has been acquired and the amount of money that was expended in doing so. And I'd also just make the point that this is a very common practice. Our neighbours at Wellington, for example, have exactly the same arrangement, and a number of councils throughout Victoria.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe my question was answered in the officer's comments. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Peltz.
Sorry. Can I just ask, with regards to this, whilst this particular insurance is a package deal which is put through the MAV insurance scheme, and so if we were to be giving delegation, would it be specifically only the fact if the MAV insurance scheme was being purchased, or if another insurance body came along and put in a better price, would the CEO then be able to go and just spend it on another insurance body? I'm just trying to check if the wording...
Yes, the CEO would be able to acquire the insurance from any insurance company, provided it had all the necessary licences attached to it, but it's these insurances specifically that would be acquired. And I would counsel against tying it to the MAV, because I think it's every second or third year we actually go out to the more general market. The provider that we have been using for the past several years has brought back the most competitive bid, which is why we use them, but we're not wedded to them. So it could change from year to year.
Okay. Councillor Ellis.
I really didn't have a question until I thought about what's just been discussed, and that is that with this particular thing, it would remain with the CEO to make any decision in terms of the procurement of those particular insurances without having a need to report to council. Have I read that right?
I think I'd repeat my earlier comment that by adopting the budget, council actually approves the acquisition of the insurance. What this does is simply put in place a mechanism whereby that procurement can be made more expediently. But yes, the CEO has the ability to acquire these particular insurances from the provider that, in his assessment and the assessment of the brokers, is the best deal.
Thanks, Councillor Rotino. Councillor White.
Mine was just a quick question. Yes, I just got in time. Basically, though, I guess this time next year, when this is going to happen, would we just be informed of what the deal might be? Not that we needed to vote on it, but that would we still be informed that we, you know, what our insurance bill would be and who it would be with?
Again, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, the estimate would already have been identified in the budget and therefore is available to all to see. We wouldn't normally report back on a procedural matter such as this one, but I'm sure the CEO would be amenable to that if councillors felt that was something that needed to happen.
Are you moving it?
Could I perhaps suggest that we move it, but to include a note that we are informed once the decision is made?
So you're adding a 0.5?
So if I could add a 0.5 to the motion as written, that would suggest that upon receipt of said insurance, the council is informed of what the arrangements are.
Thank you. We'll just put it up on the screen just so we can
For clarity.
be comfortable with 0.5, Colin. Councillor Toohey, 0.5 is there.
Could I make a suggestion through you, Madam Mayor? That there's something to the effect of, upon receipt of insurance, and council is provided a report when the outcome is known. But like arrangements are.
Complete.
I'll channel Mark. Upon receipt of the insurance, upon receipt of the insurance policy that council is, oh, don't look at me like that, Marianne. Yeah, all right.
The revised insurance.
Miss Bennett, is that clear to you what you need to do?
No, and I don't think it would be clear to any other reader. I think what I would like to do through you, Madam Mayor, is clarify what the intent is here. I thought when we started the discussion that the intent was that once the insurances had been paid, that councillors would be advised. Is that where we're going? Yes, so not necessarily on receipt of the insurance, but on payment. Yes, so could I suggest then that the delegation is conditional on councillors being informed of the councillors be informed. No, because it's all about the premium. So really, the councillors be advised of the amount of the premium amount paid. So something along the lines that the delegation is conditional on councillors being advised of the premium paid. No, that has been paid. Is conditional on councillors being advised of the amount of insurance premium paid. No. Are you comfortable?
What it's going to be before he pays it, I thought.
Have an instrument delegation.
D after the I, paid. It's far on the dog. Yeah, no dogs.
happy with that as an amendment, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. CEO and Ms. Bennett, is the point 5 clear?
It just needs to read being advised of the insurance premium paid, because the premium is the amount.
Oh, so get rid of that, yeah. Councillor Tui, do you wish to speak to the recommendation?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not really to add much. Again, it's a procedural issue that obviously does go over the delegation, but in my opinion, as long as we're made aware of what that is, I don't have any particular issue with it. Thank you.
Councillor Rotino?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just quickly, instrument of delegation is obviously built on trust, and this is just part of that. And if anything happened, well, then we review the delegation. It's pretty simple. We were briefed thoroughly on this issue. I'm happy with it, and I'm happy to vote now.
Thank you, Councillor Rotino. Any further speakers? Councillor Powell.
I'm really pleased with this because, like I said, I guess the rewording has come from the issue that we had the same issue last year, the year before and the year before. So this will get rid of that issue of it coming back to the table for us when it's an unconditional must pay. The insurance must pay, a council must pay the insurance of liability totally. So I think this is a good outcome. Thank you.
Councillor Ellis.
Madam, are you calling for anyone to vote against this?
You do.
Speakers against.
Thanks. This is a particularly important issue, and it's not the issue of the insurances. It's not the issue of providing councillors with a report after something's done. It's the issue of the role of councillors. It's the role of taking responsibility for decisions and the end management of council. It's what the people elected us for, was to be responsible and to account for the good management of council. By not providing a delegation in this case, you don't take away from the integrity or the role of any of the council officers, and particularly not of the CEO. This is a matter of issues of delegation. It would be too easy just to say, right, we will pass on this delegation. That means we can get away from a meeting a little bit earlier. Another issue will come along, and the same argument of relevancy will be put up by officers, and again, councillors will stand away from their legislative responsibility. This is not about the CEO. This is not about the role. It's not about wanting to cause undue work or pressures on council officers. It's simply an objection to the point, an argument to the fact that it is our role to make decisions and in relation to the management of council. By just neglecting any and passing on delegations one after another, you get to a stage where the relevancy of council in many ways is questionable, and as all decision making would be left with the officers. I'm not trying to make a mountain of a molehill out of this, but it is an issue about what is the role of a councillor in this case, and for that reason, not the issue of the insurances, I must oppose this, and I encourage you to think on the matters that I've put to you tonight and think about your individual roles. Why were you elected, and what responsibilities you thought you should undertake in the role of a councillor? That is my reasons for objecting to this particular delegation. Thank you.
Any further speakers? Councillor Tui, do you wish to have a right of reply?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I must say, if this is in regards to knocking off early, we're very bad at it. To my way of thinking, this is just creating administrative efficiency. I would feel very comfortable in the knowledge that we would be informed if there was a variation that went outside of what the variations have been in the past. I would expect that any large variation we would be informed of immediately, and we would then make a decision. I don't see that we really need to be looking over our CEO's shoulder to ensure that the premium that's being paid is appropriate. As I say, I would expect that we would be informed if it changed dramatically.
Thanks, Councillor Toohey. I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? All those against? Motion carried 6-2. Urgent and other business is nil. I'll ask for a mover to move into closed business.
Happy to do that. I hereby move.
You've got the page.
I hereby move that Council now closes the meeting to the public in accordance with the provisions of Section 89(2)(d) of the Local Government Act 1989 to consider items 7.1 to 7.3 as these items relate to contractual matters.
Thanks, Councillor Peltz. We've got a seconder. Thanks, Councillor Rotino. All those in favour? Motion carried. We're now into